Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. The wind moves across a barren plain, long and low, carrying with it the sound of nothing but emptiness. You hear it brushing against frozen ground, a steady whisper that seems to stretch for miles. The moon hangs pale above, its light spilling faintly over a landscape of ice and shadow. Frost clings to every surface, sharp and glittering, as though the earth itself has turned to glass. This is the Ice Age, a world vast and silent, where cold shaped not just the land, but every life that walked upon it. Winters here were not seasons, but ages, long stretches of time where survival meant adapting to an endless frost. You don't need to follow every word. Just let the images drift softly, like fog over the river. Glaciers rise like walls of stone, their surfaces glowing faintly in the moonlight, groaning as they shift slowly, almost imperceptibly, across the land. The air carries the sharp scent of snow, the crispness of frozen air that burns softly in your lungs. Somewhere in the distance, ice cracks echoing like thunder through the stillness. Mammoths move slowly across the frozen plain, here, heavy steps pressing deep into snow that muffles sound. Their breath clouds in the air, drifting upward before vanishing into the vast sky. Hunters watch from afar, cloaked in furs, silent and still, waiting for the right moment. Fires flicker faintly in caves, small circles of warmth against the immensity of the cold. You don't have to hold on to every detail. Just let the glow of fire and the crunch of frost settle gently in your mind. This was Earth during the Ice Age, a place where survival depended on patience, endurance, and fragile warmth. Each night pressed heavy, the silence broken only by the shifting of ice. The low call of animals, the faint crackle of firewood. The world was colder, slower, fast in a way that feels almost unending. And as you stand in that frozen silence, listening to the wind stretch across the plains, watching firelight flicker against cave walls, you may find yourself wondering, how did life endure through nights so long when the cold seemed to have no end? The wind moves slowly across a plain of white, its voice low, its tone steady. You hear it groaning, pressing through emptiness, carrying grains of ice across frozen ground. There are no cities, no farms, no houses, only vastness, open and endless. This is Earth in the grip of the Ice Age, a time when silence pressed as heavily as snow, when stillness wrapped itself around every horizon, when life itself was shaped by cold. Pause here. Imagine standing at the edge of glacier. It rises like wall, tall, jagged, glowing pale blue, where sun touches. Cracks echo through its body, deep and low, like groan of mountains shifting. Ice breaks slowly, falling in chunks, thundering into emptiness. Below, the sound rolls across land, then fades back into silence. All around, air is sharp, your breath clouding, your skin stinging. The world feels heavy with cold, vast with stillness. You hear a faint hiss of wind, faint crack of ice, faint sigh of snow settling. These sounds blend, folding into rhythm of frozen earth. And so, the Ice Age was not only cold, but silence made visible. Silence turned solid. Pause again. Picture the plains stretching beyond glacier. Snow lies deep, grass is hidden, rivers slowed, lakes sealed with ice. Forests shrink, their edges crisped with frost. Animals move slowly across surface, great mammoths, their bodies covered in hair, their tusks long and curved. The bison graze in groups, their breath steaming. Reindeer move in lines, their hooves striking frozen ground. Life continues, but always against silence, against cold pressing close. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels steady here. Not sharp, not hurried, but slow, folded into breath of earth itself. You don't need to trace each animal, let presence itself drift like shadow moving across snow. The Ice Age was not a single moment, but many, stretching across time. Glaciers grew, retreated, grew again. Seas fell, exposing wide lands, then rose when ice melted. The world shifted in rhythm of cold, cycles of advance and retreat. For those living then, it was not history, but daily presence. Air, thick, ground, frozen, sky heavy, and so the frozen world became stage for all survival, shaping life in every motion. Pause once more. Imagine night upon ice. The sun has gone, sky glowing faint with stars, pale moon hanging low. The glacier shines silver, its surface glittering. The air is sharp, colder still, silence heavier. No fire burns here, no voices rise, only wind moves, only ice groans, only stars look down. Night feels endless, time slowed, stillness folded. Deeper, if you're still listening, notice how silence itself feels wide here. Not empty, not void, but stretching, filling horizon. You don't need to follow each star. Let stillness itself drift like frost upon breath. Even in silence, the world changed. Ice-carved valleys, scraped rock, shaped rivers, glaciers moved, slow but heavy, grinding earth beneath. Stones cracked, mountains shifted, plains spread. The frozen world was not still, but moving in patience beyond human time. For those alive, the land seemed eternal, but beneath, change pressed on, carving memory into earth. And so, the Ice Age carried not only silence, but slow creation, shaping future within cold. Pause again. Picture morning upon frozen plain. Sun rises faint, light spreading pale across snow. Shadows stretch long, air glows white. Animals stir, breath steaming, bodies moving. Mammoths graze, bison tread paths, wolves move silent. Life endures, slow but steady, folded into rhythm of ice. The silence remains, but within it, heartbeat of survival. If you're still listening, notice how time itself feels slower now. Not moving forward fast, but stretching, folding into rhythm of cold. You don't need to measure it. Let patience itself drift like glacier pressing forward. The frozen world was harsh, but it held beauty too. Sunlight glinting on crystals, ice glowing blue within depths, stars shining clear in frozen sky. The silence was heavy, but also vast, carrying stillness. That softened mind, folding thoughts into dream. To live then was to endure, but also to see earth at scale immense, horizon endless, silence unbroken. And so, the Ice Age was memory not only of cold, but of presence, of stillness pressed into land. Pause once more. Imagine standing there now. The glacier is gone, the land green, rivers flowing, forests tall. But memory remains in the valleys carved, in stones scattered, in seas risen. The silence of ice lingers still, folded into earth. Carried forward, and you are left with reflection drifting softly, like frost upon breath. Did those who lived in Ice Age see silence as burden or as rhythm of life itself, endless and steady? Asterisk, the wind presses harder now, carrying snow in wide sheets, blurring horizon, folding earth and sky together into whiteness. You feel it push against you, steady, endless, filling ears with rush that never stops. The Ice Age was not only vast glaciers or mighty beasts, it was also daily presence of cold. Each breath clouded, each step heavy, each moment pressed against silence. Pause here. Imagine morning upon frozen plain. The sun rises pale, barely lifting above horizon. Its light dim, its warmth faint. Shadows stretch long. Frost clings to every surface. Ice crackles beneath foot. The air smells sharp, like stone and snow. Your breath burns as you inhale, freezes as you exhale. The day begins not with birdsong or bustle, but with hush, broken only by a distant groan of ice or sudden crack of tree under frost. You hear faint crunch of snow beneath foot, faint whistle of wind across open ground, faint sigh of ice shifting. These sounds form rhythm of morning, soft but steady. And so, daily life beneath ice began with silence, continued with endurance, ended with patience. Pause again. Picture the animals moving. Mammoths graze slowly, sweeping snow aside with trunks, revealing grasses buried beneath. Their tusks gleam pale. In low sun, their breath steaming. The bison moving groups, their hooves striking ice, their heads lowered. Reindeer cross plains in long lines, their antlers swaying. Wolves stalk at distance, their paws silent, their eyes sharp. Motion is deliberate, measured, shaped by hunger and by cold. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels patient here. Not hurried, not restless, but steady, folded into breath of survival. You don't need to follow each hoof. Let presence itself drift, like shadow across a plain. The days were short. Light faded quickly, the sun falling again, horizon dimming, stars rising. Night came cold, colder still, silence heavier. Families of early humans gathered near fires, their shelters built of wood, stone, hide. Flames flickered, shadows danced, warmth folded close. Food was shared, meat, roasted, roots, boiled marrow sucked from bones. Stories were told, voices low, echoing softly through night. Outside, wind howled, snow pressed higher, ice groaned. Inside, presence of fire softened silence. And so, daily life folded between vastness of cold and circle of fire between silence. Outside and warmth within. Pause once more. Imagine stepping into such shelter. Smoke curls toward roof. Light flickers across hides. Warmth clings close to fire. Children huddle, wrapped in furs, their eyes wide, their hands close to flame. Adults sit steady, their faces lined, their hands strong. They eat slowly, carefully, each bite measured, each piece shared. Silence holds, broken only by crack of wood, by sigh of breath. The night is long, but endured together. If you're still listening, notice how warmth itself feels fragile here. Not wide, not certain, but small circle carved against endless cold. You don't need to count each spark. Let glow itself drift, like ember fading, slow dot. Outside, glaciers shifted. Their bodies moved inch by inch, but their weight immense. Valleys carved deeper, rivers redirected, stones ground to dust. To those alive, the ice seemed eternal, yet it moved, shaping land slowly, pressing history into rock. Storms carried snow, heavy, piling deep, blurring ground. Rivers froze, lakes sealed, forests shrank. The world itself seemed made of silence and white. And so, daily life unfolded not against stillness, but within movement, slow and heavy, beyond human scale. Pause again. Picture midday across frozen plain. The sun is dim, the sky pale. Snow glitters faintly, ice glows blue. Animals move in distance, their shapes small against vastness. A cave lies near, its entrance dark, its air warmer within. Here, families take shelter, fire flickering against walls, drawings etched into stone lines of mammoth, of bison, of reindeer, of handprints. pressed against rock. These images mark presence, memory carved against silence. If you're still listening, notice how marks themselves feel steady now. Not loud, not urgent, but soft, patient, folded into stone. You don't need to trace each line. Let presence itself drift, like shadow lingering. Daily life beneath ice was not abundance, but endurance. Each day carried weight of hunger, of cold, of patience, yet within it was rhythm, steady and slow. Families survived, children grew, animals moved, glaciers pressed. Time was measured not in hours, but in seasons of cold, in cycles of ice, in migrations of herds. The silence was not broken, but lived within, accepted as a rhythm of earth. And so, life beneath ice was shaped not by conquest, but by patience, by listening, by enduring. Pause once more. Imagine dawn returning again. The sky glows pale, the horizon white. Animals stir, fires burn, voices rise low. The day begins again, repeating rhythm of survival, folding presence into silence. If you're still listening, notice how cycle itself feels unending here. It's not beginning, not ending, but flowing, folding one season into next. You don't need to measure each. Let rhythm itself drift, like glacier pressing, always, always. The daily life of Ice Age was not simple, not easy, but steady, endured in silence. It was carved into stone, whispered in story, carried in memory. The frozen world pressed close, but within it, life endured, slow but steady, patient but strong. And so, beneath vast silence of ice, daily presence continued, shaping earth, shaping memory, shaping spirit of those who lived. Pause once more. Imagine standing in such place now. The glaciers gone, the plain green, the rivers flowing, but marks remain, valleys carved, stones scattered, caves painted. The silence of ice lingers still, folded into land, membered across time, and you are left with reflection drifting softly, like snow across horizon. Did those who lived beneath ice see themselves as small within silence, or as part of rhythm itself, moving with patience, enduring with earth? Asterisk. The snow stretches endless across the horizon, white folded into white, silence pressing close. In this frozen world, movement was survival. The Ice Age was not only stillness of glaciers or hush of cold nights, it was also motion, herds moving across plains, footsteps carved into snow, migrations unending. For animals and for people alike, life was shaped not by place, but by journey, by rhythm of steps across frozen earth. Pause here. Imagine a herd of mammoths moving across plain. Their bodies loom tall, their hair long and coarse, their tusks sweeping wide. Each step presses deep into snow, leaving path that stretches far. They move slowly, steady, their calves sheltered between. Their trunks lifting, lowering, brushing frost from buried grasses. Their breath steams, their eyes glow faint in pale light. Around them, silence folds, broken only by crunch of feet, by a low rumble of calls. You hear a faint thud of hoof, faint swish of snow brushed aside, faint groan of herds speaking low. These sounds form rhythm of migration, steady, patient, endless. And so, the frozen world was not empty, but alive with footsteps, moving always, pressing forward. Pause again. Picture reindeer moving in long lines, their antlers swaying, their hooves striking frozen ground. They follow ancient paths, known by memory, carried by instinct, repeated across centuries. Wolves shadow them, moving silent at distance, their eyes sharp, their paws sure. Steppe bison graze in clusters, their bodies strong, their movement slow but steady. Each herd shapes path across plain, paths that cross, merge, separate again. Creation is not chaos, but rhythm, repeated, folded into seasons of cold. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels steady now. Not hurried, not restless, but patient, folding into silence. You don't need to count each hoof. Let movement itself drift, like shadow across snow. For humans too, migration was survival. Its families moved with herds, following food, following warmth, following rhythm of earth. Shelters were built, then left. Fires burned, then faded. Caves filled, then emptied. To live in Ice Age was to move, not to stay. The land demanded journey. Silence demanded motion. The frozen world was endured not by standing still, but by walking step after step, always forward. And so, footsteps of humans joined footsteps of animals, carving paths across ice, leaving memory in earth. Pause once more. Imagine a group of people moving across a plain. Their bodies wrapped in furs, their faces pale in wind, their hands holding spears, carrying bundles. Children walk close, their steps small, their eyes wide. Dogs follow, their bodies lean, their ears sharp. They move steady, their path long, their pace patient. Kana, horizon stretches endless ahead. Horizon, endless still, yet they move. Step after step, survival carried forward. If you're still listening, notice how time itself feels slow now. Not rushing, not leaping, but steady, folded into footsteps. You don't need to follow each mile. Let rhythm itself drift like wave upon shore. Migration was not only necessity, but rhythm of season. Herds moved when grasses thinned. People followed when herds moved. The frozen world carried cycle of hunger and plenty, of departure and return. The land itself dictated its silence shaping path, its cold pressing direction. Migration was not choice, but life. And so, memory of Ice Age is memory of movement, endless, impatient, folded into land. Pause again, kick your night upon migration. The herd rests, bodies clustered, breath steaming, eyes closed. People gather near fire, their shelters built small, their food shared. The wind moans, snow drifts, stars glow faint above. Night is long, but endured. At dawn, steps begin again, paths stretching further, horizons moving closer. If you're still listening, notice how cycle itself feels endless here. Rest, motion, rest again, repeated across seasons. You don't have to measure each. Let flow itself drift like snow falling slow. The migrations shaped earth too. Trails were carved into ground, worn deep by countless feet. Valleys were crossed, rivers forded, mountains climbed. Its frozen world bore marks of motion, lines etched into snow, pressed into soil beneath. Even now, traces remain, bones buried where herds fell, stones marked where fires burned, caves painted with animals seen in journey. The silence of land still carries footsteps, memory pressed into earth. And so, migration left not only survival, but mark, memory folded into land itself. Pause once more. Imagine standing where herds once moved. The ground is green now, the river's wide, the forests tall. But you can almost see its still faint line of mammoths, faint sway of reindeer, faint shadow of humans following. The silence of present carries memory of footsteps past, and you are left with reflection drifting softly. Like echo fading across snow, did those who walked endless paths see themselves as wanderers, or as part of rhythm itself? Footsteps folded into silence of earth. Asterisk, the wind slides low across the plain, rattling through grass buried beneath snow, groaning against cliffs of ice. You feel it press, heavy, sharp, folding silence deeper into horizon. For animals, this was rhythm. For people, this was burden. To live in the Ice Age meant more than following herds, more than wearing furs. It meant shaping warmth from cold, carving survival from silence. It was here that humans turned again and again to fire, to shelter, to one another, weaving life within a world that seemed always to press against them. Pause here. Imagine small circle of fire burning in dark. Okay. Its glow flickers across stone walls, across faces lined with soot, across hides stretched for warmth. Sparks rise, drift upward, vanish into smoke hole above. Shadows sway, grow long, fold back again. Around it, families gather, their bodies wrapped in furs, their hands stretched close, their eyes tired but steady. Outside, snow falls silent, wind moans low, stars shimmer faint. Inside, glow holds small circle of warmth against endless cold. You hear faint crackle of wood, faint sigh of breath released slow, faint murmur of voices low. These sounds shape rhythm of night, soft, steady, and so firelight became more than heat. It became presence, center, rhythm of human life beneath ice. Pause again. Picture the shelters built, some dug into earth, walls lined with stone, roofs framed with wood, covered in hides, sealed with snow. Others stood as tippis or tents, poles rising tall, hides stretched tight, smoke hole left above. Some built homes from mammoth bones, tusks curved into arches, covered in hides, sealed against wind. Each shelter different, but each shaped by same need to hold warmth, to hold silence outside, to create space for life within. If you're still listening, notice how shelter itself feels steady now. Not large, not grand, but small circle, carved against vastness. You don't need to trace each wall. Let sense itself drift, like quilt folded close. Inside shelters, daily life pressed on. Fires burned steady, food roasted slow, hides tanned, tools sharpened. Children laughed, though softly, their voices folded into quiet. Elders spoke, telling of hunts, of seasons, of memory. Work was steady, not hurried, each task part of survival. Knives chipped from stone, needles carved from bone, clothes stitched with sinew. Life was carved from patience, from rhythm, from silence. And so, human presence was not loud in Ice Age, but quiet, steady, folded into sound of crackling fire. Pause. Once more, imagine mother sewing near fire, her hand steady, her needle fine, her stitches small. She pulls hide close, sews slowly, carefully, shaping cloak to keep child warm. The child sits beside her, watching, listening, learning. Her motions are soft, patient, practiced. Each stitch, not only warmth, but memory carried forward. If you're still listening, notice how motion itself feels quiet here. It's not rushed, not sharp, but gentle, steady. You don't need to hold each stitch. Let rhythm itself drift, like ember, glowing, slow. Food carried life forward too. Hunters returned with mammoth, with reindeer, with bison. Fires, roasted meat, pots, boiled marrow, fat melted into broth. Nothing wasted, bones carved, sinew stretched, hides tanned, fat burned as fuel. Each meal was warmth, each bite survival, each fire circle echo of endurance. Families ate together, their voices low, their eyes steady. Outside, wolves howled, wind moaned, snow pressed higher. Inside, warmth held steady, silence softened. And so, fire was not only heat, but life itself, folding hunger into patience, folding silence into company. Pause again, Kate your long night. In cave, fire glows, shadows dance across walls. On stone, lines are drawn, figures of mammoth, of reindeer, of hands pressed red with paint. As children watch, eyes wide, learning not only survival, but memory, story, meaning. The walls carry images still, their silence echoing presence of people long gone, people long gone. If you're still listening, notice how cycle itself feels steady now. Fire, night, dawn, fire again. You don't have to hold each, let rhythm itself drift, like wave returning always. The people of cold carried survival forward, not through strength alone, but through patience, through teaching, through sharing. Their lives were small circles of firelight against endless night, but those circles held warmth enough, memory enough, spirit enough to endure. And so, firelight remains, symbol still, echo of presence against silence, memory of humanity shaped beneath ice. Pause once more. Imagine standing now in empty caves. The fire's gone, the hides decayed, the tools rusted, but the walls still hold faint marks. The stone still carries echo. Can almost hear it still, faint crackle of wood, faint murmur of voice, faint breath released slow. The silence carries memory. The cave remembers, and you are left with reflection, drifting softly. It's like smoke lingering after flame. Did the people of Ice Age see fire as gift, or as part of themselves, woven into rhythm of life, as essential as breath itself? Asterisk, asterisk. The fire burns steady, its glow folding across stone walls, its warmth pressing close. Around it, families gather, wrapped in layers of fur and hide, their breath rising faint in air. In Ice Age winters, warmth was not luxury, but shield, stitched carefully from animals hunted, shaped by hands, patient and steady. Clothing was not fashioned, not ornament, but survival. Each piece a barrier against cold, each stitch a line between life and silence. Pause here. Imagine hunter returning from plain. Across his shoulders lies hide of reindeer, its fur thick, its body heavy. He lays it near fire, his hands stiff from cold, his face weary but steady. The hide will be scraped, stretched, softened, sewn. It will become cloak, boot, glove, hood. Each piece carries not only warmth, but memory of animal, of hunt, of survival. Pressed into skin, you hear faint scrape of stone against hide, faint sigh of breath released slow, faint crackle of fire burning steady. These sounds fold together, shaping rhythm of work. And so, clothing became more than cover. It was shield against silence, shaped from patience, pressed from need. Pause again. Picture mother sewing near fire. Her hands hold bone needle, thin and sharp, carved carefully. The thread is sinew pulled from muscle, strong, steady. She draws it through hide, stitch by stitch, shaping seams tight, sealing warmth within. The fur is soft, thick, heavy. She folds it into cloak, presses it against her child, measures fit, adjusts carefully. Her voice homes low, her breath steady, her motion patient. Each stitch is rhythm, each seems survival. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels steady here, not hurried, not sharp, but soft, folding into silence of room. You don't need to count each stitch. Let motion itself drift, like ember glowing faint. Boots were made with care, hides shaped to fit foot, fur turned inward for warmth, soles layered thick, stitched with sinew, some lined with grass, dried and soft, absorbing moisture, keeping feet dry. Gloves sewn tight, mittens shaped broad, hats lined with fur pulled low. Children wrapped in layers, their faces peeking from folds, their bodies shielded against cold. Each garment practical, each shaped by patience, each pressed from labor of many hands. And so, people wore not clothing, but memory of labor, survival folded close to skin. Pause once more. Imagine family preparing for hunt, how they pull on cloaks, heavy boots, thick, gloves, snug. They wrap furs across shoulders, across heads, across bodies. They move, stiff, layered in weight, but warmth holds, silence, pressed back. Outside, wind moans, snow drifts, sky glows pale. Inside, Fire burns, clothing, shields, footsteps carry them forward. If you're still listening, notice how warmth itself feels layered now. Not single, not sudden, but folded, pressed, built piece by piece. You don't need to follow each garment. Let presence itself drift, like quilt folded heavy. Animals gave more than meat. Their hides became homes. Their bones became tools. Their sinews became thread. Each hunt carried survival beyond meal. It carried warmth, shelter, endurance. Nothing wasted, nothing lost. People lived not only with animals, but through them, shaped by their bodies, their gifts. Clothing was not separate from life, but part of rhythm, woven into silence of cold. And so, humans and animals were bound, their presence folded into one another. Pause again. Picture hides stretched outside shelter, frozen stiff, scraped clean. Children help, their hands small, their voices low. Adults work steady, their tools sharp, their motions patient. The hides soften, the fur shines, the garments take shape. Night falls, fire glows, clothing warms bodies against silence. The rhythm continues, unbroken. If you're still listening, notice how cycle itself feels patient now. Hunt, hide, sowing warmth, again and again. You don't need to measure each. Let rhythm itself drift like wave across shore. Even decoration found a place. Some garments lined with beads, carved from bone, shaped from shells, pressed into seams. Some painted with ochre, with lines, with shapes. These were not for show alone, but for meaning. Symbols carried, spirits remembered, stories told upon fabric. Clothing became not only shield, but memory, but story, folded into silence. And so, even within survival, people sought beauty, sought meaning, sought rhythm beyond need. Pause once more. Imagine child's cloak painted faint, beads sewn near collar, patterns shaped into seams. The child runs near fire, laughter soft, cloak swaying. The decoration glows in flicker, the pattern faint but steady. The garment warms body, but also spirit, shaping presence against silence. If you're still listening, notice how beauty itself feels soft here. It's not grand, not heavy, but quiet, folded into seams. You don't need to hold each symbol. Let sense itself drift like smoke fading slow. The clothing of Ice Age was not only barrier, but bond. It carried memory of labor, of hunt, of patience, carried warmth of fire, smell of smoke, weight of fur. It carried presence of family, of survival, of silence endured together. Each garment was story, whispered against skin, remembered in seam, folded into warmth. And so, people endured, not naked against silence, but wrapped in memory, in patience, in resilience. Pause again. Imagine dawn again. Families rise, pull on cloaks, wrap boots, fasten belts. They step into snow, their bodies wrapped, their warmth held. The horizon glows pale. The wind presses steady. The silence deepens. Yet they walk, step after step, shielded against cold, carrying warmth of many hands. If you're still listening, notice how endurance itself feels steady now. Not sudden, not fleeting, but carried, pressed, layered. You don't need to trace each motion. Let rhythm itself drift, like snow falling faint. Clothing in Ice Age was shield, but also bridge, between human and animal, between past and future, between silence and survival. Each stitch was breath, each seam heartbeat, each garment memory. In this way, people carried not only warmth, but identity, shaped by cold, shaped by patience, shaped by silence, endured. And so, the garments remain in memory, echoes of warmth, pressed into silence, reminders of how humans endured beneath ice. Pause once more. Imagine standing in empty plain. Now, the hides are gone, the garments decayed, the needles rusted. But you can almost feel it still. Faint brush of fur, faint pull of thread, faint warmth pressed close to skin. The silence carries memory. The land remembers, and you are left with reflection, drifting softly like frost across breath. Did the people of Ice Age see their clothing as barrier alone, or as memory folded close? Reminder that survival itself was stitched, seam by seam, from patience. Asterisk, the fire fades low, its glow a circle against a vast dark. Beyond it, silence stretches, broken only by wind groaning across plain. For people of Ice Age, this silence was not only night's presence, it was the stage upon which survival was carried out. To endure, they hunted. And the hunts were not only for food, but for life itself, shaping bonds, teaching patience, weaving strength across generations. Pause here. Imagine men and women gathered at dawn. The sky glows pale, the horizon white, the air sharp, their bodies wrapped in furs, their hands gripping spears tipped with stone, their eyes steady. They move quietly, their steps sinking into snow, their breath misting before them. Dogs follow, their ears pricked, their bodies lean, their tails low. The silence folds heavy around, broken only by crunch of snow beneath foot. Head, herd moves. Slow, mammoth, bison, reindeer, the hunters follow, their pace patient, their rhythm steady. You hear faint swish of fur, faint thud of footfall, faint sigh of wind pressing. These sounds blend, forming rhythm of hunt. And so, hunting was not sudden clash, but long patience, carved against the silence of earth. Pause again. Picture the mammoth herd, grazing. Their trunks sweep snow aside, their tusks glint pale in low sun, their bodies steaming with breath. The hunters watch, their eyes fixed, their spears ready. They wait for a moment, the weak calf, the stray adult, the herd slowed. Their voices low, their gestures quiet, their patience heavy. Hours may pass, steps may stretch, cold pressing, hunger deepening, yet still they wait, endurance shaping survival. If you're still listening, notice how patience itself feels heavy. Here, not hurried, not sharp, but steady, folded into silence. You don't need to follow each step. Let rhythm itself drift, like snow falling slow. The strike comes sudden, spears lifted, hurled, driven. Shouts rise, breaking silence. Dogs leap, herd stirs. Okay? Mammoths trumpet, their voices echoing low across plain. Snow shakes beneath stampede, breath thick in air. Chaos folding into silence once more. One falls, struck heavy, its body immense, its breath slowing. Around it, hunters move, their spears ready, their voices rising, their patience rewarded. The herd flees, horizon empty again, silence pressing back. And so, survival was carved in a moment of clash, prepared by hours of patience, sealed by silence after. Pause once more. Imagine families gathered around fallen mammoth, fires lit, meat carved, fat gathered, bones set aside. Children watch, learning, rhythm of cut, weight of hide, patience of work. Nothing wasted, marrow sucked, sinew pulled, hide stretched, tusk carved. The animal carries warmth beyond food, life beyond death. Its presence lingers in shelter, in clothing, in tools, its spirit folded into silence of people. If you're still listening, notice how fullness itself feels steady now. A sudden feast, not loud plenty, but quiet endurance carried forward. You don't need to count each use. Let memory itself drift like smoke across sky. Hunting smaller game-filled days, too. Reindeer taken with traps, bison with coordinated drive, hares with snares, birds with nets. Each meal small but steady, each hunt shaping skill, patience, rhythm. The people endured not by single triumph, but by many, folded into days, into nights, into silence. And so, survival was not only in moment of mammoth, but in steady rhythm of small hunts, repeated again and again. Pause again. Picture line of hunters driving reindeer toward cliff. Their shouts rise, their bodies move, their spears steady. The herd runs, pressed by sound, their hooves striking, their breath steaming. Some fall, their bodies broken, their meat gathered. The hunters cheer low, their faces calm, their labor ready. The silence returns, but filled with weight of food carried, life assured. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels. Endless here, silence, hunt, clash, silence again. You don't need to hold each hunt. Let cycle itself drift like wave returning. Sharing mattered as much as hunting. Families gathered around fires, dividing meat, passing fat, offering marrow. 2 children, saving hides for elders. Bonds deepened in sharing, trust shaped, survival carried not by one, but by many. The cold pressed heavy, but warmth grew wider through community, through voices low, through meals shared. And so, the people of Ice Age endured, not alone, but together, their hunts carried forward by sharing. Pause once more. Imagine night after. Hunt. Fire glows bright. Meat roasts slow. Fat drips. Smoke rises. Children laugh. Their bellies full, their faces warm. Adults sit close, their eyes steady, their voices calm. Songs rise, stories told, silence softened by company. Outside, wind moans, snow falls, wolves howl. Inside, warmth holds, food sustains, patience carries forward. If you're still listening, notice how presence itself feels steady now. Not heavy, not sharp, but warm, folded into a circle of fire. You don't need to follow each voice. Let sound itself drift like ember glowing. Hunts were not only survival, but memory. They were painted on caves, carved in bone, told in story. As children learned not only through watching, but through tale, through mark, through echo. The hunts became rhythm of culture, not only of body, but of spirit. Their presence lingers still, across stone walls, across earth, across silence. And so, hunting was more than need. It was memory, story, presence, folded into identity. Pause again. Imagine cave wall painted with mammoth, with bison, with handprints pressed red. Fire flickers, shadows dance, image glows. Children watch, there, eyes wide, their spirits learning. The silence holds, but within it, story carried forward. The hunt remembered, endurance preserved. If you're still listening, notice how mark itself feels timeless here. It's not moment, not hour, but echo, folded into stone. You don't need to hold each line. Let presence itself drift like frost. Lingering, the hunts of Ice Age shaped humanity itself. Key, demanded patience, courage, cooperation. Key, they carved bonds, carried memory, shaped rhythm of life. Key, they were endured not only in silence of plain, but in silence of spirit, folding presence into endurance. And so, survival beneath ice was carved not by single hand, but by many. Each step, each voice, each breath folded into one. Pause once more. Imagine standing now in open plain. The herds are gone, the hunter's gone, the fire's gone, yet you can almost hear it still. A faint thud of hoof, faint cry of mammoth, faint cheer of hunters. The silence carries memory. The land remembers, and you are left with reflection drifting softly, like echo fading slow. Did those who hunted in Ice Age see themselves as masters of plain, or as part of silence itself, moving within rhythm of earth? Asterisk. The silence of the Ice Age was not empty. Across plains swept with snow and valleys pressed with ice, life moved with weight and presence. Herds grazed, predators prowled, wings beat slow against gray sky. These animals were not only part of land. They were the land, shaping its silence, filling its vastness with breath and sound. To live in a frozen world meant to live among giants, creatures of size and strength, their bodies built for endurance, their presence woven into every horizon. Pause here. Imagine a mammoth stepping forward. Its body looms tall, hair long and coarse, brushing snow as it sways. Its tusks sweep wide, gleaming pale in low sun, curving outward like arcs of ivory sky. Each step presses deep into ground, leaving prints wide as bowls. Its trunk lifts, curls, sweeps snow aside, pulling grasses buried beneath. Around it, calves move closer, their smaller bodies steaming with breath, their footsteps lighter but steady. The herd clusters, their calls low and rumbling, carrying across frozen air like distant thunder. You hear faint crunch of snow beneath massive foot, faint groan of trunk brushing ground, faint call deep and low. These sounds shape rhythm of giant, folded into silence. And so, the mammoth was not only beast, but presence, shaping horizon with weight and with shadow. Pause again. Picture steppe bison grazing nearby. Their bodies are wide, their heads heavy, their horns curved sharp. They move in clusters, pressing snow aside, their hooves striking ground, their breath rising like smoke. They graze with patience, their eyes sharp, their bodies strong. Round them, reindeer move in long lines, their antlers swaying, their hooves steady. The plains are filled not with emptiness, but with movement, with rhythm, with life enduring beneath ice. If you're still listening, notice how presence itself feels steady now, not rushed, not fleeting, but patient, folded into rhythm of playing. You don't need to count each animal. Let motion itself drift like wave across horizon. Predators move too. Saber-toothed cats, their bodies heavy, their fangs long, their eyes fixed. They stalked herds, moving silent, their steps measured, their presence hidden until a moment of strike. Cave lions roamed wide, their manes faint, their size immense, their roars echoing across valleys. Wolves hunted in packs, their calls rising in chorus, their pace tireless. The frozen world was filled with struggle, each herd shadowed, each predator waiting, each step shaping rhythm of survival. And so, silence was not absence, but stage, where life pressed against life, each motion shaping another. Pause once more. Imagine saber-toothed cat crouched low, its body tense, its breath silent. Head, reindeer move, their heads lowered, their bodies grazing. The cat waits, still as stone, eyes sharp, muscles tight. Then, with sudden burst, it leaps, fangs flashing, claws extended. Snow scatters, herd scatters, cries rise. The silence breaks in moment, then folds again, pressing quiet once more. If you're still listening, notice how stillness itself feels layered now. Not only silence of plain, but silence before strike, silence after echo. You don't need to follow each clash. Let rhythm itself drift, like snow settling slow. Cave bears endured in mountains, their bodies large, their fur thick, their claws sharp. They retreated into caves for winter, curling into dens, their breath heavy, their sleep deep. Some caves still carry their marks, scratches etched into walls, bones pressed into earth. Their presence lingered, their memory folded into stone, their silence preserved across time. And so, even in stillness, animals carried rhythm, their presence carved into land itself. Pause again. Picture a flock of great birds crossing the sky. Their wings beat slow, their bodies dark against pale clouds. Calls rise, echoing across valley, fading into silence. Below, smaller creatures move, hares darting through snow, foxes slipping between drifts, rodents burrowing beneath frost. The frozen world was not only giants, but small lives too, each pressing, each enduring, each folded into rhythm of cold. If you're still listening, notice how balance itself feels steady now. Not one creature alone, but many, each shaping silence together. You don't need to hold each name. That presence itself drift, like wind moving through grass. The animals of Ice Age were not only companions of silence, but teachers of endurance. Their bodies showed how to live with cold, thick coats, heavy fat, steady patience. Their migrations shaped rhythm of seasons. Their presence fed people. Their hides warmed shelters. Their bones shaped tools. They were not separate, but bound, folded into survival of all that. So, to speak of Ice Age is to speak of animals. Their footsteps pressed into snow, their breath steaming, their shadows stretching across frozen plain. Pause once more. Imagine standing there now. The mammoths are gone, the bison scattered, the lions vanished, yet you can almost see it still. Faint shadow of tusk, faint echo of roar, faint line of reindeer moving slow, moving slow. The silence carries memory, the land remembers, and you are left with reflection drifting softly. Like breath fading into frost, the people of Ice Age see these animals as foes, as prey, or as companions in endurance, living together beneath silence of ice. Asterisk, the silence of the Ice Age was not only filled with herds grazing or mammoths trudging through snow. It was also broken by shadows, by eyes glinting in dim light, by breath low and steady, waiting for strike. For every creature that roamed the frozen plains, there were hunters that followed, moving with patience, pressing close, folding themselves into rhythm of prey. Pause here. Imagine wolves gathering at edge of plain, their bodies lean, their fur thick, their eyes bright in pale moonlight. They move in circle, low to ground, their paws silent upon snow. Their breath steams, their tails low, their ears pricked. Do not rush, do not leap. They wait, their patience long, their rhythm steady. A herd of reindeer grazes nearby, their antlers rising and falling like waves upon frozen sea. The wolves watch, their silence deeper than night itself. You hear faint crunch of snow under paw, faint huff of breath pressed slow, faint whine carried low. These sounds fold into rhythm of hunt, and so wolves became masters of patience. Their strength not in single strike, but in pack, in bond, in silence, shared. Pause again. Picture cave lions moving across the valley, larger than lions of today. Their bodies sleek, their muscles strong, their paws wide. They hunt in small groups, their steps silent, their eyes sharp. They stalk bison grazing, moving close, then closer, their bodies pressed low to snow. A single roar breaks silence. Herd scatters, lions leap, claws flash, teeth sink, silence shatters. As quickly it returns, folded back into night. If you're still listening, notice how silence itself feels layered here. Not only stillness of night, but hush before strike, hush after cry. You don't need to hold each clash. Let rhythm itself drift, like snow settling slow. The saber-toothed cats were more terrible still. Their bodies heavy, their fangs long, curving like knives of ivory. They stalked close, their patience longer than prey could bear. Then they leaped, sinking fangs deep, their weight pulling life down. They were feared not only by animals, but by people too, their presence shadowing hunts, their eyes glowing in dark. To see them was to feel silence fold tight, breath held, time slowed, and so predators were not only part of frozen world, but shadow within it, shaping fear, shaping rhythm, shaping silence. Pause once more. Imagine family huddled near fire at night. Outside, wolves howl, their voices rising in chorus, long and mournful, echoing across valley. Go. The sound carries deep, pressing against hide walls, shaking silence Inside, children stir, their eyes wide, their bodies pulling closer. Adults sit steady, their hands near spears, their faces calm but watchful. Fire crackles, shadows sway, warmth presses close. The howls fade, then return, then fade again. The silence never empty, but filled with presence of hunters unseen. If you're still listening, notice how sound itself feels endless here. Not only howl, but echo, carrying beyond horizon. You don't need to follow each note. Let voice itself drift like wind across plain. Predators shaped humans too. Hunts were not only for food, but for defense, for safety. Spears sharpened, fires built higher, shelters sealed tight, groups gathered larger, voices raised stronger. People learned patience, learned vigilance, learned bond of many. Predators pressed them closer, taught them endurance, carved resilience from fear. And so, the shadow of predators shaped humanity itself, forcing presence into bond, into patience, into strength. Pause again. Picture hunt reversed. Men and women gather, spears ready, dogs eager, fire carried in torches. They press toward cave where lions rest, their shadows swaying against stone. The lions roar, their eyes fierce, their bodies tense. The hunters shout, their spears fly, fire crackles, smoke rises. The lions retreat, their shadows folding deeper into stone. Silence returns, filled now with breath of people, with the rhythm of triumph. If you're still listening, notice how balance itself feels fragile. Here, not only hunter, not only prey, but shifting, folding, turning. You don't need to mark each victory. Let rhythm itself drift, like ember fading. The predators of Ice Age were not endless. Some fell with time, their bodies too heavy, their prey too scarce, their silence too deep. Saber-toothed cats vanished, their fangs left in soil, their bones pressed into stone. Cave lions disappeared, their roars remembered only in echo. Wolves endured, their howls carried still, their presence folded into nights even now. The silence shifted, but memory remains, and so, the shadow of predators lingers, not only in bones, but in stories, in memory, in silence that still carries their breath. Pause once more. Imagine standing now in empty valley. Snow lies pale, the horizon wide, the wind moans low. No lions move, no cats prowl, no wolves howl, yet you can almost hear it still, faint cry in distance, faint step upon snow, faint breath pressed, slow. The silence remembers, the land carries echo, and you are left with reflection, drifting softly, like frost across skin. Did those who endured Ice Age fear predators as enemies, or see them as part of same rhythm, sharing silence, sharing endurance beneath frozen sky? Asterisk, the frozen world was filled with giants, mammoths looming, bison clustering, predators prowling, yet beneath those heavy shadows, quieter lives endured. In the silence of the Ice Age, the small creatures carried rhythms of their own, quick and patient, fragile and resilient. They moved unseen at times, their footsteps light, their voices faint, their presence easily overlooked. But without them, the balance of frozen plains would falter, the silence grow empty. The Ice Age was not only a stage for giants, it was also a world of small lives pressed close to earth, enduring quietly beneath the weight of cold. Pause here. Imagine hair darting across snow, its fur white in winter, blending with drift, its paws wide, pressing light upon surface. It moves swift, zigzagging, vanishing into brush, reappearing again. Its ears twitch, its eyes wide, its body tense. Fox follows at distance, red against pale, its paws careful, its breath low. The hair freezes, motionless, invisible. The fox waits, patient. Okay. Then both move again. Silence breaking with sudden flurry of snow. The chase is brief, silence folding back quickly, leaving only faint prints upon surface. You hear a faint patter of small paws, faint rustle of brush, faint hiss of snow scattered. These sounds carry rhythm of smaller hunt, delicate but steady. And so, survival was not only heavy but swift, not only vast but hidden. Pause again. Picture burrows beneath snow. Small rodents curl close, their nests lined with grass, their breath warm, their bodies huddled. Above, wind howls, snow presses deep, cold, heavy. But below, in tunnels, warmth lingers, food stored, life steady. They gnaw, seeds, roots, bark, their teeth sharp, their motions constant. Their presence feeds fox, owl, weasel. Their absence would starve larger, louder predators. Coo, in silence of snow, the smallest carried balance, their lives unseen but essential. If you're still listening, notice how hidden itself feels steady here. Not loud, not bright, but folded quiet into earth. You don't need to imagine each burrow. Let rhythm itself drift, like heartbeat slow. Birds carried presence too. Ravens circled above, their calls harsh, their wings steady. Owls hunted, silent. At night, their eyes glowing, their feathers soft, their strikes sudden. Ptarmigans shifted color with season, brown in summer, white in winter, blending into land. Their wings beat faint, their calls soft, their presence quiet but steady. Above frozen world, sky was not empty, but crossed by wings, shadows moving across snow, voices echoing faint. And so, the silence of Ice Age was layered, not only ground, but air, filled with faint sound of wings, faint call of birds moving through horizon. Pause once more. Imagine night upon plain. Stars glow, pale, moon low, snow glittering, faint. An owl sweeps overhead, silent, its shadow gliding across drifts. A vole scurries below, its body quick, its trail narrow as the owl drops, wings spread, talons strike. Silence breaks for a moment, then folds again. The vole is gone, the owl silent once more, the night steady again. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels delicate here. Not thunder of mammoth, not roar of lion, but whisper, fleeting, folded into quiet. You don't need to hold each chase. Let presence itself drift, like breath fading slow. Insects, too endured, their bodies small, their patience long. Some burrowed into bark, some nestled beneath snow, some lay dormant, waiting warmth of summer. They carried life in silence, unnoticed, unseen, yet vital. The frozen world was shaped not only by vast herds, but by buzzing hidden, by fluttering brief, by persistence of smallest bodies. And so, Kay's age was not only giants striding, but countless small lives moving quiet, each shaping balance, each carrying rhythm unseen. Pause again. Picture fox, curled in den, its breath warm, its ears twitching, rounded, small bones scattered, feathers light. Height sleeps, patient, waiting for night. Above, raven circles, its call harsh, its eyes sharp. Below, rodent scurries, its trail winding, each life folded into another, each presence shaping survival of many. The silence holds, but within it, countless rhythms, countless motions. If you're still listening, notice how web itself feels steady here, not simple, not straight, but layered, folded, endless. You don't need to trace each thread. Let pattern itself drift, like frost spreading slow. For humans, too, small lives mattered. Rodents trapped, birds snared, fish caught beneath ice. Each meal counted, each bite endured. The giants gave much, but not always. The small fed daily, filled gaps, carried hunger away. People painted mammoth upon cave walls, but in their stomachs lay hare, bird, fish, vole. Survival was not only grand, but quiet, folded into patience of small lives. And so, the giants filled memory, but the small filled body, each shaping survival in a different way. Pause once more. Imagine family gathered near fire, meat from hair roasting, fish boiling, bones cracking. Children eat quick, their laughter soft. Adults eat slow, their voices steady. The food is small, but steady, warmth pressed into body, silence softened by presence. Aside, wind moans, snowdrifts, horizon endless. Inside, the small meal carries life, steady against cold. If you're still listening, notice how presence itself feels humble now. Not feast, not plenty, but enough. You don't need to mark each meal. Let patience itself drift like ember fading. The small lives of Ice Age shape balance as much as giants. Their presence filled silence. Their absence deepened hunger. They were hunted by fox, by owl, by people. They endured beneath snow, within burrow, across sky. Their footsteps light, their calls faint, their presence often unseen. Yet, without them, the frozen world would falter, silence would break, balance would collapse. And so, the memory of Ice Age is carried not only by bones of mammoths, but by faint trails, faint feathers, faint shadows that once filled horizon. Pause again. Imagine standing now in snowy plain. No mammoths walk, no lions prowl, but you see hare, dart quick, fox follow, owls sweep overhead. The silence holds, but is alive, filled with smaller lives. Their presence is quiet, but steady, enduring still, and you are left with reflection, drifting softly, like whisper, fading slow. Did the people of Ice Age honor giants alone, or did they feel, too, quiet bond of small lives, carrying rhythm, of survival, hidden beneath silence of frozen world? Asterisk, the Ice Age was not fixed in stillness. Though glaciers seemed eternal, though winters pressed endless, the earth was always moving, always shifting beneath weight of cold. The frozen silence was carved not only by time passing slow, but by change, pressing steady, ice advancing, then retreating, seas falling, then rising, valleys buried, then revealed. The land of Ice Age was stage of transformation, its silence filled with motion unseen. Pause here. Imagine glacier stretching across horizon, its body towers, high, jagged, glowing blue where sun strikes. Its cracks echo through its depth, deep groans rising like voice of mountain. Ice breaks, falling in thunderous blocks, splashing into meltwater below. Streams trickle, rivers form, water spreads across plain. The glacier advances, pressing forward inch by inch, carving valley beneath, grinding rock to dust. It's a human eye. It seems unmoving. To earth, it is always in motion. You hear faint drip of water, faint rush of stream, faint groan of ice splitting. These sounds fold into rhythm of change. And so, silence of Ice Age was never still, but shaped always by weight and retreat of ice. Pause again. Picture sea far away, its waters pulled back, its floor exposed, land stretching wider. Cross it. Animals wander, people follow, paths opened where water once lay. Later, as ice melts, seas rise, land sinks, paths vanish beneath waves. What was plain becomes ocean, what was bridge becomes deep. The frozen world shifted, not only in cold, but in boundary of Earth itself. If you're still listening, notice how presence itself feels vast here, not single, not sudden, but steady, folded into rhythm of water and ice. You don't need to measure each tide. Let motion itself drift like wave against shore. Forests move too, as cold pressed south. Trees shrank, their branches brittle, their roots frozen. Tundra spread, grasses stretched, moss clung close. When ice retreated, trees returned, pressing north again, their leaves unfolding, their shade spreading. The horizon shifted, not only in ice, but in green, in cover, in sound. Birds returned, insects hummed, silence softened. Then, with new, cold, forests shrank once more, silence pressed heavier again, and so, the land carried rhythm not only of snow, but of trees, breathing, of seasons, stretched across centuries. Pause once more. Imagine plain empty, grasses bent beneath frost. Then imagine forest pressing forward, birch and pine spreading, their trunks tall, their leaves trembling. Shadows stretch across the ground, air filled with scent of resin, sound of wind through branches. Later, cold deepens, trees fall silent, their bodies brittle, their roots lifeless. Silence returns, folded heavy, broken only by wind. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels endless here. Forest, plain, forest again. You don't need to follow each cycle. Let pattern itself drift like breath in sleep. The melting ice reshaped rivers too. Floods surged as glaciers broke, their waters pressing wide, carving valleys, filling basins. And floods were sudden walls of water rushing, land drowned in hours. Others, slower, steady rise, carrying water into plains, turning silence of snow into silence of lake. People watched, animals moved, land transformed, paths lost, homes drowned, memories buried beneath water. And so, the changing earth carried silence, not only of ice, but of flood, of water pressing wide. Pause again. Picture valley filled with water, its floor hidden, its edges lined with ice. Fish swim where mammoths once walked. Birds circle where people once camped. The silence is different, but steady, folded into new shape. Adapts, endures. If you're still listening, notice how time itself feels slower now. Not moment, not hour, but centuries folded into water. You don't need to recall each flood. Let flow itself drift, like river pressing always. Mountains rose higher too, not in sudden burst, but in patience, as ice pressed weight, then released. Land rebounding, stone shifting, valleys deepened, cliffs cracked, lakes formed. Earth was carved, shaped, pressed, then eased. Silence carried not emptiness, but labor of mountain, patience of stone. And so, the frozen world was not static, but sculptor, carving land beneath silence. Pause once more. Imagine cliff rising, its face jagged, its stone sharp. Below, valley stretches, carved by ice, smoothed by flood. Snow rests heavy, water trickles faint, silence deep. The land holds memory of motion, carved into every surface, pressed into every stone. If you're still listening, notice how weight itself feels patient here. Not loud, not sudden, but steady, folding into centuries. You don't need to follow each crack. Let presence itself drift, like shadow lingering. The changing earth pressed upon people too. Paths they walked shifted, lands they knew vanished. Rivers they followed widened or dried. Camps were moved, hunts redirected, memory reshaped. To survive was not only to endure cold, but to follow change, to move with earth, to learn rhythm. Of silence pressed new dot. And so, humans became wanderers, not only by hunger, but by land itself, shifting always, pressing always. Pause again. Picture family moving across a plain, their bundles heavy, their steps slow. Behind them, flood spreads, camp drowned. Ahead, new land rises, new river flows. They walk steady, children near, dogs close, their voices low. The horizon stretches wide, the silence filled with motion unseen. If you're still listening, notice how migration itself feels endless here. It's not single journey, but many, folded into rhythm of earth. You don't need to mark each path. Let journey itself drift, like snow across a plain. The Ice Age was an age of change, of silence moving, of land shifting. Glaciers advanced and retreated. Seas fell and rose. Forests spread and shrank. Rivers carved, floods pressed, mountains lifted. The earth itself breathed, slow and heavy, its silence carrying motion beneath. And so, its memory of Ice Age is not only cold, but patience of change, presence of earth shifting beneath silence. Pause once more. Imagine standing now upon land once, pressed by ice. Valleys stretch wide, rivers flow, forests rise, yet stones scattered still, carved by glacier, shaped by flood. The silence carries memory. The earth remembers, and you are left with reflection drifting softly. Like frost across breath, did those who lived then see land as shifting, or did they believe silence itself was eternal, unchanging beneath sky? Asterisk, the silence of the Ice Age was never still. Beneath the weight of glaciers, water gathered, waiting. When the ice shifted, cracked, or melted, the quiet broke in floods, walls of water rushing across valleys, drowning plains, carving new paths. These floods were not storms of ours, but events of centuries, each one reshaping earth, each one folding silence into new rhythm. Asterisk, pause here. Imagine valley filled with ice. Beneath its weight, water presses, hidden, patient. Then, with sudden crack, ice breaks, walls collapse, flood surges, the roar rises, louder than thunder, louder than storm. Trees snap, stones roll, herds scatter, camps vanish. The water rushes, carrying soil, carrying wood, carrying memory. For hours, valley reshaped, silence returned, but different now, carved by flood. You hear faint rush of water, faint crack of ice splitting, faint echo of silence pressing after. These sounds form rhythm of flood, sudden, then steady, and so the frozen world was not only cold, but shifting, reshaping in floods that carried land itself away. Pause again. Picture plain drowned, where herds grazed. Now water spreads, wide and still. Mammoths move to higher ground, their calves close, their tusks lifted. Reindeer scatter, bison turn, wolves follow. People climb hills, their shelters lost, their fires drowned. They watch, silent, their eyes steady, their breath heavy. The world they knew gone beneath surface, replaced by silence of water. If you're still listening, notice how stillness itself feels heavy here. It's not empty, not void, but new, folded into water. You don't need to mark each loss. Let presence itself drift, like ripples spreading slow. The skies shifted too. Cold deepened, then eased. Winds carried snow, heavy, then lighter. Summers stretched longer, winters pressed shorter. Clouds gathered thick, then thinned. The air warmed, the ice melted, rivers widened, seas rose. What seemed eternal grew fragile. What seemed endless began to fade. People watched, animals moved, silence folded into new rhythm once more. And so, the Ice Age carried not only weight of cold, but breath of change, warming, slow, reshaping horizon. Pause once more. Imagine forest returning. Trees spread, birch and pine pressing north, leaves unfolding, shade spreading. Birds return, their calls soft, their wings steady. Insects hum, air filled with faint buzz. Silence softened. Where once tundra stretched, now green unfolds. The land breathes different, carrying rhythm not only of snow, but of leaf, of shadow, of hum. If you're still listening, notice how change itself feels patient here. Not sudden, not sharp, but slow, folded into centuries. You don't need to count each season. Let rhythm itself drift, like forest pressing always. The floods reshaped memory. Caves, once near plain, now looked upon water. Valleys carved deeper, rivers redirected, paths lost. People moved, carrying bundles, leading children, following animals. Camps abandoned, stories left, memories shifted. What was once familiar was drowned. What was once certain vanished. Yet survival continued, patience endured, silence accepted. And so, humans endured not only by fire, by hunt, by clothing, but by moving with land, adapting to flood, carrying life forward through change. Pause again. Picture family moving across hill. Behind them, water spreads wide. Their shelter drowned. Their fire lost. Ahead, new land rises, green unfolding, river flowing. They walk steady, their bundles heavy, their children close. Their silence is not despair, but endurance. Their steps steady, their patience strong. The land shifts, but they move always forward. If you're still listening, notice how endurance itself feels steady now. Not fleeting, not fragile, but folded into journey. You don't need to follow each step. Let rhythm itself drift. Like snow across plain, animals shifted too. Herds moved north, following grasses, following cold. Predators followed herds, their shadows pressing forward. Mammoths dwindled, reindeer spread, bison shifted. Birds flew new paths, fish filled new rivers, forests sheltered new voices. The balance shifted, silence reshaped, life folded into change. And so, the Ice Age was not only presence of cold, but migration of all, pressed by flood, by warmth, by silence, turning new. Pause once more. Imagine horizon glowing with dawn. Water reflects pale light. Trees shimmer faint. Animals move across ridge. The silence is different now. Not emptiness, not weight, but softer, filled with hum, with call, with rustle. The frozen world is melting, but still steady, still vast, still carrying rhythm of change. If you're still listening, notice how patience itself feels endless here. Not broken, not hurried, but slow, folded into earth. You don't need to hold each change. Let presence itself drift. Like wave returning always, the floods and shifting skies were memory of earth breathing. They reshaped land, reshaped life, reshaped silence. They were not disaster, not end, but rhythm of world, folding always into new, pressing always into change. And so, the memory of Ice Age lingers not only in bones, in caves, in stones, but in rivers flowing, in seas risen, in silence reshaped. Pause again. Imagine standing now by river carved by glacier. Its waters rush, its banks wide, its stones smooth, rounded. Forest rises, birds call, wind sighs. Yet beneath flow lies memory of ice, of flood, of silence pressing heavy. The land remembers, even if silence has softened. And you are left with reflection drifting softly, like water folding into shore. Did those who lived in sea floods as loss, or as a reminder that silence itself is never still, but always moving, always reshaping world? Staskin. The Ice Age did not vanish in a single moment. It unraveled slowly, like frost melting at dawn, like embers fading after fire. Centuries pressed into centuries, and the weight of cold eased, little by little. Snow still fell, winds still moaned, glaciers still gleamed, but each winter lessened. Each summer stretched longer, each silence softened. The earth was warming, not with sudden blaze, but with patient breath. Pause. Here, imagine glacier retreating. Its front breaks, water rushing, ice falling in thunder. But behind, valley reveals, rock exposed, soil bare. Moss spreads, grass rises, small plants cling. Birds circle, their calls sharp against air. Insects hum faint. The land, once buried, breathes again. Its silence, new, filled with different rhythm. You hear a faint drip of meltwater, faint hum of insect wing, faint sigh of wind moving through grass. These sounds fold into rhythm of warming earth. And so, the frozen world eased not with end, but with unfolding, slow and steady, carried across centuries. Pause again. Picture herds moving north. Mammoths follow cold, step by step, their calves close, their tusks lifted. Reindeer scatter wide, wolves follow, bison shift. Some thrive, some dwindle, some vanish. The warming presses, reshaping balance, turning abundance into fragility. Animals endure, but not all endure forever. Silence carries not only presence, but loss. If you're still listening, notice how fragility itself feels steady now. Not sudden, not loud, but quiet, folded into horizon. You don't need to count each herd. Let motion itself drift, like shadow across plain. Forests spread further, pressing north. Birch and pine stretch wide. Oak and elm follow. Shadows deepen, leaves tremble. Birds nest, insects hum louder. Rivers fill, lakes widen, fish swarm. The tundra shrinks, grasses fade, moss gives way to green canopy. Where once silence of snow pressed heavy, now silence of forest folded thicker. It's filled with hum, with rustle, with shadow. And so, the earth reshaped not only in ice retreating, but in forest advancing. In green unfolding, where white once lay. Pause once more. Imagine standing at forest edge. The air smells of resin, of damp soil, of leaf crushed beneath foot. Light flickers through branches, shadows sway, wind sighs. The silence is new, but steady, folded into trees, layered with sound of bird, of insect, of leaf. The frozen plain has shifted, but still carries rhythm of patience. If you're still listening, notice how transformation itself feels gentle here. Not clash, not rupture, but unfolding, steady as dawn. You don't need to hold each tree. Let presence itself drift, like forests breathing slow. With warming came change for people too. Their shelters shifted, their hunts altered, their tools grew new. They followed herds north, but some stayed, shaping life in forests, fishing in rivers, planting seeds. The warming carried not only change in land, but birth of different way, from wandering to staying, from hunter to planter, from fire of survival to fire of hearth. The ice age closed, but in its closing, new age opened, and so silence of cold gave way to murmur of villages, to rhythm of fields, two voices rising steady. Pause again, picture family building by river. Their shelters wood now, their tools, stone but shaped finer, their baskets woven, their seeds pressed into soil. Fire still burns, but its smoke rises above home, not camp. Children laugh, their voices carrying. Adults speak, their hands working, their patience steady. The silence is not gone, but softer, folded with presence of many. If you're still listening, notice how life itself feels wider here. It's not only circle of fire, but many circles pressing across horizon. You don't need to recall each change. Let rhythm itself drift, like dawn stretching slow. Animals to carried endings. Mammoths dwindled, pressed north, their herds smaller, their cause fading. Bare-toothed cats gone, their fangs buried in soil. Cave lions vanished, cave bears too. Wolves endured, reindeer endured, bison endured, but balance shifted, silence reshaped. Giants left memory behind, their bones scattered, their images painted in cave, their shadows lingering. And so, the warming carried not only life, but farewell, not only endurance, but loss folded into silence. Pause once more. Imagine cave wall painted long ago. Mammoth drawn with heavy line, bison with steady stroke, reindeer with careful hand. Fire flickers, shadow sways, image glows. Outside, the animals gone, their herds vanished, their calls silent. Yet the cave remembers, the stone carries presence. The silence holds echo, memory folded into rock. If you're still listening, notice how memory itself feels endless here. Not loud, not heavy, but soft, lingering. You don't need to hold each image. Let echo itself drift, like ember, fading slow. The warming shaped seas, too. Waters rose, coasts shifted, islands formed. Bridges once crossed, vanished. Lands once wide sank beneath waves. People separated, paths divided, memory fractured. The silence of sea grew wider, its presence heavier, its reach further. The warming reshaped map itself, drawing new horizon, folding land into ocean. And so, Earth itself changed face, its silence carried in wave, its memory pressed into shore. Pause again. Imagine shoreline wide, water rising slow. Villages shift, people move, animals scatter. The sea glitters, the sky glows, the horizon stretched further. The silence carries not emptiness, but distance, pressing wide, folding presence of land away. If you're still listening, notice how distance itself feels vast now, not sudden, not rushed, but slow, folded into tide. You don't need to measure each coast. Let horizon itself drift like wave unending. The ice age ended not with sound, but with a whisper. It melted slow, warmed slow, shifted slow. But within that patience lay transformation vast. Forests spread, seas rose, animals vanished, people changed. Silence carried all, steady and endless, folding memory of cold into the presence of new. And so, the warming was not only end, but beginning, shaping earth, shaping life, shaping memory carried still. Pause once more. Imagine standing in field today. The grass sways, birds call, rivers flow. No mammoths graze, no saber-tooths prowl, no glaciers tower. Yet the land beneath was carved by ice, by flood, by warming. The silence of past lingers, folded into soil, into stone, into breath of wind. And you were left with reflection, drifting softly, like frost melting slow. Did those who lived through warming know it was ending? Or did they feel only silence, shifting, carrying them from one age into next without ever knowing boundary? Asterisk, the glaciers melted, the forests spread, the seas rose, and yet the memory of ice remained. Long after the last mammoths faded from horizon, long after the valleys filled with green, people remembered. They told stories in firelight, carved images on stone, whispered myths of giants, of floods, of endless winters. The ice age lingered not only in bone and soil, but in memory, in dream, in silence, carried forward. Pause here. Imagine family gathered by fire. The night is warm, forest close, stars glimmer above. Yet the story told is of cold, of winds sharp, of herds vast, of predators shadowing. The speaker's voice low, steady, their hands shaping air, their eyes reflecting flame. Children listen, wide-eyed, though they have never seen mammoth, never walked upon ice. They see it in words, feel it in rhythm, dream it in silence. Past folds into present, carried by voice. You hear faint crackle of fire, faint murmur of voice, faint breath of children quiet. These sounds form rhythm of memory, steady, enduring. And so, the Ice Age lived on, not in sight, but in story, whispered across centuries. Pause again. Picture cave wall, painted long before. Its lines of ochre, shapes of black, curves of hand pressed against stone. Mammoths stride, bison graze, reindeer move, spears drawn, hunters shone, hands reaching. Firelight flickers, shadows sway, images seem to move, to breathe. These are not only drawings, but memory carved into stone, silence of Ice Age folded into pigment. Even when herds gone, images remain, whispering across time. If you're still listening, notice how memory itself feels layered here. Not only story told, but picture drawn, echo pressed. You don't need to trace each line. Let presence itself drift, like shadow against a wall. Myths grew from silence, too. Floods remembered as punishments. Winters told as trials. Giants recalled as beasts of snow. In some places, stories of great waters, drowning valleys, carry echo of glacial floods. In others, tales of long nights, endless winters, hunger pressing, mere memory of ice. These myths are not only fancies, but echoes, softened by centuries, folded into culture, pressed into dream. And so, the Ice Age became foundation of memory, shaping imagination, shaping story, shaping silence of human thought. Pause once more. Imagine shaman speaking in circle, their body painted, their hands lifted, their voice chanting low. Tell of spirits, of cold, of beasts immense, of silence heavy. The people listen, their faces calm, their eyes steady. The story is not history, not fact, but memory transformed. Silence turned sacred. Fire crackles, night deepens, the echo of ice carried forward. If you're still listening, notice how voice itself feels timeless here. Not tied to moment, but drifting across centuries. You don't need to hold each word. Let chant itself drift, like smoke rising slow. The bones carried memory too. Mammoth tusks carved into figurines, bison etched into horn, beads pressed from ivory. These were not only tools, but symbols, reminders, memory held in hand. Some buried with dead, some worn by living, some offered to earth. Each object carried echo of animal, of hunt, of cold endured, even as warming pressed memory of ice carried in hand, in bone, in silence. And so, the Ice Age was not only carved in land, but in objects, in tokens, in presents, passed down. Pause again. Kitchen necklace strung with beads of ivory, worn by child. Each bead, polished, shaped, carried. The child runs, laughs, their cloak swaying, beads glimmering in sun. They do not know mammoth, have never seen, heard, but wear memory still, carried an object, folded into silence of life. If you're still listening, notice how presence itself feels close now, Not distant, not gone, but carried, soft and steady. You don't need to mark each beat. Let memory itself drift like river beneath. The land itself carried memory. Valleys carved by glaciers, stones scattered by flood, soils pressed by ice. Even when forests grew, rivers flowed, villages rose, the marks remained. People saw them, wondered, remembered. They built myths of giants, carving valleys, spirits, scattering stones, gods pressing mountains. They walked upon memory, lived upon memory, carried silence beneath every step. And so, Earth itself whispered Ice Age, its marks pressed into every horizon. Pause once more. Imagine standing by a valley wide, its walls steep, its floor smooth. Forest grows, birds call, rivers flow. Yet the valley was carved by glacier, its shape pressed by silence of ice. The land holds memory, even if people forget. The silence lingers, folded always. If you're still listening, notice how landscape itself feels alive here. Not empty, not mute, but whispering, carrying past. You don't need to hold each shape. Let presence itself drift, like shadow of cloud. The memory of Ice Age was not only survival, but identity. Height shaped who humans were, how they lived, what they dreamed. It taught patience, endurance, bond, a carved story, myth, ritual. Even as glaciers melted, even as silence eased, memory carried forward, folded into culture, into spirit. And so, though Ice Age ended, its silence remains, not in cold alone, but in memory, in whisper, in dream. Pause again. Imagine child falling, asleep near fire. Their mother hums low. Their father tells a story of mammoth, of hunt, of cold. The child drifts, eyes heavy, breath slow. They do not live in Ice Age, but they dream it still, carried into sleep, folded into memory. The silence presses soft. The story lingers. The echo of cold endures. If you're still listening, notice how dream itself feels endless now. Not tied to one, not tied to time, but drifting, folded into silence. You don't need to follow each word, let presence itself drift, like ember glowing faint, and you are left with reflection, drifting softly, like smoke fading into night. Did the people who remembered Ice Age know they carried history? Or did they believe they carried only story, only dream, only silence, pressed into words? Acostarus, the Ice Age ended, but its echoes stretched long into human story. People who no longer walked among mammoths, who no longer saw glaciers pressing across horizon, still felt weight of memory and tale, and ritual, and whisper of ancestors. Across cultures, across centuries, myths of endless winters, of floods that swallowed valleys, of beasts larger than life endured. The silence of ice was transformed into sacred story, folded into imagination. Pause here. Imagine a circle of villagers gathered by fire. The air is warmer now. Fields stretch beyond. Forests hum with life. Yet the story told is of past cold, of hunger pressed heavy, of waters rising. The elder's voice steady, their words slow, their hands tracing air. Children lean close, their eyes wide. They have never seen glaciers, never walked a tundra, never heard mammoths trumpet, but in story, they live it. They feel silence pressing. They imagine cold folding in. You hear faint crackle of fire, faint murmur of voice, faint breath of listeners hushed. These sounds shape rhythm of myth, steady, endless. And so, the Ice Age became not only memory of survival, but foundation of story, carried into cultures long after. Pause again. Picture myth of great flood. In many lands, people told of waters rising, drowning valleys, covering mountains. Boats built, animals gathered, few survived. These were not only tales of spirit, but echoes of glacial floods, of seas rising, of rivers bursting as ice melted. The memory softened, changed, reshaped, but its root carried still. Silence of water pressing wide, people enduring, life carried forward. If you're still listening, notice how echo itself feels layered here. It's not single, not sharp, but folded across lands. You don't need to trace each version. Let story itself drift, like waves spreading far, spreading far. Other myths told of endless winters. Some spoke of world frozen, sun hidden, hunger pressing. Gods fought, spirits quarreled, people suffered. These stories carried echoes of Ice Age winters, of nights long, of cold deep, of silence pressing, endless. Even when forests returned, fields grew, warmth spread, people remembered, telling stories of winter eternal, of silence unbroken. And so, the weight of Ice Age pressed into myth of cold, teaching patience, warning of hunger, reminding of silence endured. Pause once more. Imagine shaman chanting low, their body painted, their breath steady. They call upon spirits of cold, upon ancestors who endured. They remind people of hunger past, of silence survived, of patience needed. The chant is not only prayer, but memory carried forward, folded into culture. The silence of ice becomes silence of ritual, sacred, and enduring. If you're still listening, notice how voice itself feels endless here, not tied to moment, but drifting across centuries. You don't need to remember each chant. Let echo itself drift like smoke rising faint. The beasts became myths, too. Mammoths, remembered as giants, their tusks curved, their bodies massive. Saber-toothed cats turned into monsters with fangs like swords. Cave bears into spirits of mountain. Cave lions into guardians of underworld. Their bones unearthed centuries later fed stories still. Their size misunderstood, reshaped into dragons, into titans, into gods. The silence of their absence became filled with imagination of presence. And so, the animals of Ice Age lived on, not in herds, but in myth, their shadows stretching further than life itself. Pause again, okay? Picture hunter finding tusk buried in soil, its size immense, its curve sweeping, its ivory pale. He does not know mammoth, never seen, heard, but he knows. Giant, he knows spirit. He brings tusk home, places it near fire, tells story of beast immense, of fight fierce, of silence broken. The bone becomes myth, the myth memory, the memory story. If you're still listening, notice how presence itself feels timeless here. Not gone, not present, but folded into imagination. You don't need to hold each beast. Let shadow itself drift like mist across field. The floods, the winters, the beasts, all shaped ritual as fires burned longer in winter, prayers whispered to hold warmth, offerings made to rivers, to seas, to calm floods, bones buried with care, tusks carved, hides decorated. Myths folded into ritual, ritual folded into life. The Ice Age endured, not in cold, but in rhythm of culture. And so, memory of ice became not only tale, but practice, shaping how people lived, how they prayed, how they dreamed. Pause once more. Imagine community gathered by river. They throw offerings into water, beads, food, carved bone. Their voices rise, their hands lifted, their silence deep. They remember floods past, even if they never saw them. They remember hunger past, even if they never felt it. They carry memory in ritual, in silence, in presence. If you're still listening, notice how ritual itself feels steady now. Not moment, not act, but rhythm, repeated, folded, always. You don't need to picture each offering. Let gesture itself drift like ripple across water. In this way, the Ice Age was not lost. It lived in firelight, in story, in ritual, in myth. It endured in whispers, in chants, in imagination. It shaped identity, carved spirit, folded silence into culture. The glaciers melted, the animals vanished, the winters eased, but the memory pressed on, transformed, softened, enduring still. And so, the silence of Ice Age remains not only in land, but in mind, in story told, in myth whispered, in ritual repeated. Pause again. Imagine yourself now, listening. The fires glow, the voice slow, the story steady. You are far from Ice Age, far from glaciers, far from mammoths. Yet you feel it still, faint echo pressed into silence, faint memory folded into word. The story lingers, drifting across time, carried into present, and you are left with reflection, drifting softly, like ember fading into ash. Did those who told myths of cold and flood know they carried history? Or did they believe only spirits spoke through silence, shaping memory into story eternal? Asterisk, the glaciers melted long ago, yet their silence has never fully left. Even now, rivers cut valleys once carved by ice. Stones lie scattered where glaciers pressed, and seas cover land once walked by mammoth and man alike. The memory of the Ice Age lingers in landscapes, in bones unearthed, in stories told. in questions whispered by those who wonder how Earth once breathed beneath such weight of cold. Pause here. Imagine walking through wide valley today. The hills rise steep, their sides smooth, their slopes marked by stone. A river winds below, its waters glinting, its path carved long before by glaciers grind. Forests rise where tundra once stretched, birds call where silence once folded. Yet beneath beauty lies Memory Valley, shaped by ice, stone pressed by weight, river born from melt. The silence of Ice Age remains, faint but steady. Folded into land, you hear faint rush of water, faint call of bird, faint sigh of wind across trees. These sounds carry memory of what once was silence, deeper still. And so, the Ice Age endures, not in presence, but in mark, pressed into earth, carried into now. Pause again. Picture scientists unearthing bones. In soil deep, in permafrost frozen, tusks emerge, skulls gleam, fangs curve. They brush gently, lift carefully, study patiently. Tease, not only bone, but memory, shadow a beast that once walked frozen. Plain, they imagine herds moving, predators stalking, people watching. The silence of past revealed, whispering into present. If you're still listening, notice how patience itself feels steady here. Not hurried, not loud, but quiet, folded into excavation. You don't need to recall each find. Let memory itself drift, like dust settling soft. The bones tell story. Mammoth's tusk reveals its age, bison's horn its struggle, reindeer's antler its season. Even pollen pressed into soil tells of grasses grown, of forests spread, of cold endured. The earth carries memory, hidden in stone, in ice, in soil, waiting for those who listen, who study, who imagine. And so, the silence of Ice Age speaks still, not through voices, but through marks left, whispers carried. Pause once more. Imagine holding fragment of tusk. It feels heavy, smooth, cold. You see, curve of ivory. Imagine giant that bore it. Imagine herd moving. Imagine plane stretching. The fragment is not only bone, but presence, memory folded in. You feel silence, pressing, echo carried. If you're still listening, notice how presence itself feels close now. Not gone, not distant, but here, folded into touch. You don't need to hold each detail. Let weight itself drift like frost upon skin. The Ice Age echoes in climate too. Glaciers remain upon mountains. Ice sheets linger at poles. Seas still rising. Rivers still shifting. The breath of earth continues, warming slow, changing still. Scientists watch, measure, record, cod. They see patterns. Remember Ice Age, learn from silence of past. The warming of then whispers to warming of now. The patience of centuries reminding present of fragility, of change, always pressing. And so, the Ice Age teaches still, not only history, but rhythm of earth, patience of change, silence of warming. Pause again. Picture ice sheet breaking today. A crack echoes, a wall collapses, water rushes. The sound is ancient, yet current, echo of Ice Age in present moment. The glacier melts, sea rises, land shifts. The memory is not gone, for it happens still, repeating, reminding, echoing. If you're still listening, notice how rhythm itself feels endless here. Not bound to past, not bound to now, but continuous, folded into earth. You don't need to follow each measure. Let presence itself drift like tide unending. The myths echo too. Floods told in story, winters told in prayer, beasts remembered in legend. Even today, tales of dragons, of titans, of spirits carry faint memory of mammoths, of saber-toothed cats, of floods pressing. The Ice Age lives not only in science, but in imagination, in dreams whispered still. And so, Silence of Ice Age endures, folded into story, carried across generations, echoing still in words we tell. Pause once more. Imagine reading story now. Of flood drowning valleys, of winter endless, of beasts immense. You feel faint echo of Ice Age, folded soft, carried still. The silence presses, the memory lingers, the past speaks through story. If you're still listening, notice how a dream itself feels timeless now. Not past, not present, but both, folded into imagination. You don't need to hold each version. Let story itself drift, like shadow moving. The Ice Age lingers even in you. Patience, the endurance, the bond of people shaped by cold are folded into spirit, into memory deep. Your ancestors endured silence, endured hunger, endured cold. Their resilience carried you here. Their memory, part of you still. In your breath, in your patience, in your silence, faint echo of Ice Age lingers. And so, the memory of ice is not distant, but near, folded into body, into spirit, into silence of now. Pause again. Imagine closing your eyes. You hear faint crackle, faint sigh, faint breath. You feel patience, wait, silence. You imagine mammoth walking, wolf howling, glacier pressing. The images drift, the sounds soften, the silence folds. You are far from Ice Age, but you carry it still. Faint echo within, and you're left with reflection drifting softly. Like snow fading slow, is the Ice Age truly gone? Or does its silence endure in every valley carved, in every story whispered, in every quiet breath we take beneath sky that still remembers, still remembers?